Hey everyone, it's me Bo, back again for another cult movie review. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Hope you're all doing good. Now today, I'm going to be reviewing a movie that many out there may have never seen before. I literally just stumbled across it by chance, and that movie is The School of Flesh. Before we get into the review, guys, if you like the content that I do here, please consider subscribing to the channel. All the support is greatly appreciated. So, The School of Flesh from 1998 was directed by the filmmaker Benoit Jacquet and was based on the 1963 novel by author Yukihiro Mishima. Actress Isabelle Huppert starred in the lead role alongside actors Vincent Martinez and Francois Berland. As for the narrative, the movie was centered around a young man called Quentin who worked at a gay bar and, basically living his life not really up to much, where one day he stumbled upon a woman called Dominic who was played by Huppert. They first spotted each other at the bar where Quentin was working. They locked eyes, but neither one of them initiated any conversation. The following night, Dominic returned to the bar where she asked Quentin to serve her a drink. The two got talking and it was quite clear that there was an immediate attraction. They went out on a date and very quickly the two got romantically involved with each other, which turned into this whirlwind romance. Now, Dominic was this middle-aged, rich businesswoman that came from a wealthy background. She was running her own business. She was very successful. The complete opposite to Quentin, who was this young guy, a bartender, who, had little to no money and did everything he could to basically earn some cash. Quentin even took it upon himself to actually pimp himself out to either men or women, as long as they were willing to pay for it. This disparity in wealth over time mounted. It caused a lot of issues between the two, with Dominic not wanting to see Quentin struggle like he was. I wouldn't say that the guy was down and out, but, he had a job and stuff like that, but obviously he was struggling from, week to week, trying to pay rent, pay bills, like all of us. So, and obviously with Dominic on the scene, she was there to offer her support in any way she could. Eventually, Dominic moved Quentin into her apartment where she financially supported him. Now, that's quite a big commitment, especially that, they didn't really know each other that well. But obviously, Dominic was head over heels for him and, she lived alone, so it wasn't really a big issue. Now, in fairness to Quentin, he accepted all the help that Dominic was willing to provide. Who could blame him? But he also did constantly remind Dominic that this was just a temporary thing, and that even though he was grateful, he wanted to stand on his own 2 feet. You see, Quentin did genuinely like Dominic, and he didn't want to be seen, taking advantage of her. At this point, though, Dominic was getting way too involved. She was, in her eyes, trying to help someone, but in actuality, she was smothering Quentin. That only made him feel more miserable and distant towards her. Dominic continued with her overbearing ways by getting Quentin a job and initiating him into the world of high fashion. She landed Quentin a job as a model. And, fair play to the guy. He did try it out. He did attempt to, live that lifestyle. But, deep down, it just wasn't for him. he was his own man. He wasn't going to take orders from anyone. And, him being a private guy, he kept a lot of things close to his chest. He gave Dominic very little information about his background and, where he came from and what he's done before. And all of that mystery just made Dominic feel even more curious. It wasn't enough just to live with the guy and, call him your boyfriend. No, Dominic wanted to know every single little detail about Quentin's life. She started stalking Quentin, keeping tabs on him every time he left the apartment. It was some strange behaviour, and Dominic did feel somewhat conflicted over what she was doing, but she still went ahead with it anyway. This, however, did backfire when Dominic discovered that Quentin had gone back to his old ways of selling himself on the street. There he was, standing on a street corner, pimping himself out to whoever was willing to pay. And Dominic, of course, was very stunned by this, given all of the support and all the things that she'd done for him. Quentin didn't need to go back out on the streets. He didn't need to sell his body for cash. He was financially supported by Dominic. But, you see, deep down, Quentin got a buzz, he got a high from basically being a prostitute. Of course, when Dominic found this out, she was very upset, and, who could blame her? She cooked and cleaned for the guy. She took him in when she didn't need to, and, well, he basically betrayed her. He lied to her, pretending that he'd not gone out on the streets, when in fact he did. This moment was quite pivotal in the story because it was the moment in which Dominic finally realised that her and Quentin were just never gonna work out long term. They were incompatible. Quentin was too independent. He was too much of a free thinker and wasn't going to be held down by anyone. As time went on, more and more cracks started to emerge in their relationship, with Quentin acting more and more disinterested and Dominic questioning why she even bothered in the first place. Dominic even went as far as to pay off Quentin's debt, but to him, he just was continuously unhappy and never satisfied. In some ways, this was like a power struggle of sorts, but it was nuanced. You see, Quentin wasn't this evil, twisted guy that was exploiting Dominic, and on the other hand, Dominic wasn't this lonely and desperate woman trying to find companionship. In actuality, their relationship was rather complex, with each one trying to discover and find something that was missing in their own lives. The two eventually split, with Quentin leaving the apartment to go and live with his new girlfriend, Maureen Thorpe, who was played by Roxanne Mesquida. This girl was literally about 15. She was a schoolgirl and was head over heels for Quentin, a much older guy. Of course, this came as a big shock to Dominic when she found out. It was hard enough, having Quentin left her, but he left her for a 15-year-old schoolgirl. That definitely affected her deeply. Now, Dominic would attempt to regain some self-respect and start dating men of her own age, but it was hard. It obviously wasn't something that she really wanted to do, but she knew she had to move on eventually. Dominic had to just accept that her real love, Quentin, just wasn't interested anymore. It was My dog has come to say hello. Say hello. The ending to the movie had the story jump a few years into the future, where Dominic was now dating a man called David. she seemed content and going about her day when she randomly bumped into Quentin on the street. They both seemed very surprised to see one another, but what was even more surprising for Dominic was that Quentin now had a daughter. He seemed happy. He had moved on, he was working in a hotel, and that young guy, had a chip on his shoulder who was miserable, that guy was gone. While, of course, Dominic was happy for him, deep down, you could tell that she was heartbroken over what could have been. Now, the absence of motherhood was a central theme in this film and was explored through the Dominic character. She was a divorced woman who never had any children, so once she was in that relationship with Quentin, as I mentioned earlier, she mothered him. Her motherly instincts kicked in, and Dominic couldn't help but be the overcaring and overprotective person that she was. It was quite clear to me that Dominic deep down wanted a child of her own, so she could be the mother that she's always wanted to be. She had concentrated so hard on her career, becoming this big success in the fashion industry, that motherhood had passed her by. So going back to the ending of the film, when Dominic saw Quentin with his child, it was a harsh reminder of what was missing in her own life. For all we know, there may have been a medical reason as to why Dominic never had children, but that was never established. What I will say though is, if the background was kind of fleshed out more, I think it would have made the ending feel even more compelling. When it comes to the performances in the film, I have to give credit to the lead actress Isabelle Huppert, who once again impressed me with her performance as Dominic. Huppert was able to capture this desperation, this vulnerability in her characterization of Dominic that made her feel very relatable. I'm not going to deny that there are a lot better Isabelle Huppert performances out there in other films, but still, I thought when it came to The School of Flesh, she gave a solid and understated performance. I guess the only thing that I wasn't really into was her hairstyle. That short cropped hairstyle that was in the film, and I just didn't think it suited her. Of course, this film was made in the late 90s when that was quite fashionable for women to, cut all their hair off and spike it up and stuff. But I just didn't like it. She looks a lot better with longer hair. Actor Vincent Martinez, who played Quentin, delivered a quietly intense performance acting alongside Huppert. I did feel some sympathy for Quentin because he did seem quite lost throughout the whole film, that he was trying to find some sort of meaning or purpose in his life, and eventually he did in fatherhood. Once at the end of the film, we saw him with his child, and that obviously changed him emotionally and mentally. He suddenly was a respectable parent, which was the complete opposite of when we first saw him. The actor Vincent Martinez isn't someone I'm too familiar with, but I thought for the most part he did a pretty good job acting alongside a more established star in Isabelle Huppert. When it comes to the practical side of things, I thought the cinematographer Caroline Champetier did a pretty good job giving us some pretty interesting visuals throughout. With dramas like this, a lot of the time the cinematography and the aesthetic can be an afterthought. A lot of these types of films tend to focus on story and characterization. But it was good to see that this movie and Champetier did make an effort in trying to enhance the visual elements. I also liked the use of the intimate camera work that we saw throughout the film, with many different close-ups of the characters showing the detailed nuances of their performance. The various close-ups allowed the actors to rely less on the dialogue, but more about their, physical acting abilities. And I think taking away some of the dialogue and allowing some scenes to just, breathe on their own, it definitely added a lot of realism. And so, dislikes for The School of Flesh from 1998. My biggest dislike for the film would have to be that the story at times felt very underdeveloped. There were certain things that were introduced, but they never really evolved into anything substantial. For example, the relationship that Quentin had with his lawyer, who was played by actor Francois Berland. The two met and grew a close bond, and clearly there was some history, something going on between the two that was alluded to, but we never really found out what actually went on. I kind of got the impression that maybe Quentin and his lawyer had some sort of sexual relationship and that they were no longer talking or in contact because they had broken up. That was what I kind of got from it, but hey, that may not have been what actually happened. Another example was Quentin's relationship with Marianne Thorpe. Now, this was a 15-year-old schoolgirl played by Roxanne Mesquida, and I just felt that as soon as it was introduced, it didn't go anywhere. I felt that there was a lot of story to tell with this love triangle that was suddenly introduced, but once again, not established, just hinted at, and that was it. And so, ratings for The School of Flesh from 1998. I'm going to be rating this movie a 4.5 out of 10. The School of Flesh was an intriguing character study on how desire can be both liberating and destructive. One thing I did like about the movie was its criticism of this whole businesswoman independent mindset that we saw emerge in the 90s. That whole idea, the career woman, I feel it hurt what is fundamental to our society, which is the nuclear family. If you're a fan of Isabelle Huppert and her work, I think that you will enjoy The School of Flesh, as her presence alone is enough to keep you engaged with the story. If any of you guys out there have seen The School of Flesh, please let me know your thoughts and memories in the comments section below. For all those out there who haven't, it is a recommendation from me, but can't say it's amazing. It definitely has its flaws, but then again, it's still better than most of the stuff we see on streaming today. And well, that's all from me today, guys. I do hope you've enjoyed this review of The School of Flesh from 1998. I'll be back next week. Don't forget to subscribe.